Chickens are quite funny and a little weird birds. They do lots of strange things that can confuse a human. One of them is their drive to dig holes whenever there's a chance. Sometimes chickens dig just because they're bored, but other times they bury into the ground. Actually, it's a way to fix evolution's mess. The thing is, evolution left the chickens no means of protection from the heat, so they had to come up with their own. The easiest way is to dig a hole deep enough to reach the cool ground and then get into it and wait for the body to gradually cool down. Does it work? You bet it does. However, the need to cool off is not the most unusual reason why birds may use the ground. Not chickens alone get smeared with earth, dust, or sand. Other birds also do this, but this time in order to take a bath, so to speak. Well, when you don't like getting wet, you have to look for some workarounds. The dust worked into the bird feathers absorbs excess oil, which gets their plumage matted. This oil-soaked dust is then easily shed, leaving the feathers clean. Clean feathers means great aerodynamics, no lice, and all that. As a bonus, dust, sand, or earth can act as a body scrub, removing dry skin and debris. It's a win-win. But it's not always that a bird rolling in the dust seems healthy to people. Why, even experienced ornithologists sometimes can't tell what exactly is going on with the bird. Is that a dust bath, or is the bird injured and in pain? Or did someone attack it? All these convulsive movements can look really disturbing. In general, if you suddenly see a scene like that, don't try and help the bird and don't pull it out of the ground. Maybe the poor creature's just trying to cool off. Of course, you can't say all birds without exception stay away from water. After all, there are all sorts of ducks and penguins. But the most unexpected example is the males of the Namakwa sand grouse from South Africa, which not only get into the water, but also absorb it, like sponges. These sand grouses live in some of the driest places on Earth, so just imagine your chicks have just hatched and they're thirsty. Well, you need to bring them water. How do you do this if you're a bird, and not even a pelican? You carry liquid in your feathers. Literally. The male sand grouse flies to some puddle, then wades in up to his belly, then rocks back and forth, periodically shaking its body. This goes on for 15 minutes. The special structure of the feathers allows these birds to soak up and carry 0.85 ounces of liquid. That's about 2 tablespoons. After that, all that's left is to deliver water to the chicks. To be honest, that's really the most unusual way of collecting water I've seen in animals. Even the fact that spiders apparently drink water that condenses onto their webs from moist air is not so surprising. This seems to be logical. Everyone must have seen these tiny droplets on thin silk threads at least once, if not with their own eyes, then in some pictures. Spiders simply had to use this water. Why waste the good stuff? By the way, people have already figured out that structures inspired by a spider web can collect water for them. The structure, called Warka Tower, doesn't require energy and collects drinking water directly from the air each day. That is, from rain, fog, and dew. They say it really works. But humans aren't as interesting as wild animals. If you've been watching our videos for a while, you know my priorities. So say hello to saltwater crocodiles. When they find themselves far from water during a drought, they try to escape in pretty much the same way as chickens do, by digging into the ground. Crocodiles look for mud. After all, it's wet, helps avoid dehydration and sunburn. But instead of a shelter, the mud becomes their grave. The crocodile burrows into the mud and is soon trapped, gets stuck, overheats, and dies. Direct exposure to sunlight can kill a saltwater crocodile in a couple days. Actually, it's a terrible way to die. How come animals seek shelter from the heat in the mud? That is, I get it when crocodiles do it during a drought, but they're not the only ones. Take pigs, for example. They love mud. They definitely aren't closely related to crocs. Well, scientists also wondered why pigs love mud so much and found out that the sweat glands are the reason, or rather, the shortage thereof, plus layers of fat and a body that looks like a barrel with legs. When a pig wallows in mud, it lowers its body temperature by about 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. By the way, even if evolution gave pigs enough sweat glands, wallowing would still be more efficient. Therefore, a mud bath is more cooling than cold water because the moisture from the mud evaporates more slowly, which means the effect lasts longer. Other animals know this, but it's a good thing people just use the sweat glands. Because the ways animals cool off are often, let's say, not suitable for us. Marabou storks actually just poop right on their legs. What? Waste products contain moisture, which evaporates and cools the skin. That is, feces work in exactly the same way as our sweat, but also with some perks. The droppings of marabou storks make their legs lighter and less susceptible to heat. By the way, since we're talking about the cooling properties of bird droppings, I have great news for you. They may save us from global warming. Researchers have found that ammonia, which is found in the excrement of seabirds, affects the chemical composition of the Arctic atmosphere. More droppings means more ammonia. More ammonia means more clouds, and more clouds means more coolness. Maybe it's time to talk about some other animals. Cicadas actually shower each other to cool off. And yes, you got it right. This is a pea shower. On hot days, cicadas consume more liquid from the leaves of trees, so that later they actively urinate and lower their body temperature. So if you're walking under a tree on a hot day and you feel something dripping on your head, well, next time wear a hat. Unlike cicadas, Saharan silver ants are decent and don't spray anyone, but can still withstand incredible heat. They literally roam the desert and collect the carcasses of insects that couldn't stand hot weather. Ants beat the heat because they're hairy. No, seriously. See that unusual silver tint? It appears due to microscopic hairs. They reflect light, help the ants cool down and stay cool. It's sort of like a fridge suit. Oh, you think a fridge suit's too much? How about air-conditioned clothing? It actually exists. And the first working models appeared in the '90s. Of course they were invented in Japan. Clothes with built-in air conditioning are made by Kuchifuku Company and look like someone sewed a pair of unnecessary computer coolers into your jacket or pants. These items are still available for around $50, according to Amazon. But you know, we've been talking a lot about animal cooling systems today and still haven't mentioned hippos. Hippos and their bloody sweat. Share in the comments if you were also expecting this topic to pop up. Because when you look at a sweaty hippo, it seems like this animal just came out of some horror movie. And this won't end well for you. Well, yeah, seeking a hippo in the wild is not the best idea. However, the red liquid covering the animal is not sweat in the usual sense. Sweat's supposed to evaporate and cool the skin. And this fluid moisturizes it and acts like sunscreen. As I've said in previous videos, hippos have very soft skin, sensitive to burns. Initially, the secretions are colorless, but they gradually turn red. Scientists believe this enhances protection from the sun. This red sweat also has an antibiotic property. In short, only pros. Though not for people. In ancient Egypt, there was some sort of belief that hippos purposely hurt themselves when they get too fat or just don't feel well. Allegedly, the blood came out and then the animals became healthier. I don't know why the ancient Egyptian doctors believed this, but they began to use this practice on their patients. Humans, not hippos. Afterwards, this absolutely useless bloodletting practice spread to other countries and persisted in traditional Western medicine up until the 1800s. It was this practice that killed the legendary Robin Hood, according to the old ballad, of course. Just think about it. Robin Hood, who died because of bleeding ancient Egyptian hippos who actually weren't bleeding in the first place. All right. While cooling hippos confused the ancient Egyptians, tiny flies blew bubbles. To cool off, they blow out stomach juices through their mouths, forming a bubble. Then it cools off, and the fly sucks it back in. This sounds a tad ridiculous, but it cools the fly's head, thorax, and abdomen. And if the fly repeats the process a couple more times, the cooling effect will increase. I wonder if flies can freeze doing this. And now, attention, ladies and gentlemen, the award for the most ridiculous thing the animal does to cool off goes to a fish that comes out of the water. While any other creature is trying to get into the water to lower its body temperature, the mangrove rivulis is cooled by air. When the water in its native tropics or subtropics heats up to 96 or 100 degrees Fahrenheit, the fish jumps onto the shore. Although the temperature of air and water is approximately the same, for some reason this fish manages to actually cool down in a few seconds. It then gets back into the water. Scientists still don't know how it works, so if you have any ideas, share them in the comments. See you later.